Hey everybody, this is Caesar with SmallEngineVelocity coming at you with the long-awaited video for adjusting the Honda Ruckus valve lash or the valve shims for the Honda Ruckus. I've been promising for this video for a while, and I wanted to make sure I had all the proper tools and all the proper instructions to make sure that this would be something that could be done by pretty much anyone who has these tools and has the patience and the time to be able to perform these actions to make this something that would make them successful in setting the lash on this. A lot of times the symptom of bad valve lash is terrible cold starts, or you have to hold the throttle down for a while, or it takes a while for it to start running right. It has to get warm first. This is a huge symptom of this. Sometimes it also causes, or actually a lot of times, this will also cause performance issues, depending on whether the valves are too tight or too loose. So before we begin this, let's go ahead and roll that intro. All right, now that I got that out of the way, if you look behind me, right here, I have the motor set up. If you're not familiar, this is the old motor from the Honda Ruckus in the very, very beginning of the series before I replaced it with another one. We're gonna use this one as a stock example, which is exactly the reason why I kept it, to be able to show people things with this particular motor on how to do, I guess, daily maintenance. So let's go ahead and get into that. All right, so let's jump right into it. So the first things that you're gonna need to know, or at least most importantly you're gonna need to know, is what do you need to do the valve lash on a motor for the Honda Ruckus, the Get 49cc water-cooled motor. So first thing you're gonna need is you're gonna need your gauges. So you're gonna need some of these valve gauges right here in assortment. I'll tell you specifically which ones you need later on. You're going to need a magnet on a stick, right? So that you could pick things up and go woo, 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 right? This will come in play later on. You'll understand what that's for. Then we're gonna need a caliper. This is optional. This just helps the process come along quicker if you get a caliper to measure the valve shims. All right, you're gonna need a spark plug socket to pull the spark plug out of here so that it's not compressing against the spark plug. You're going to need a 10mm socket, and you're gonna also need an 8mm socket for the actual valve cover, as well as a shim kit. This is a 7.48 millimeter OD shim kit. All these things that I'm using right here, I'll put links in the description below to be able to use, but this particular shim kit comes with exactly one of each shim that you're gonna need. How that's helpful is, I mean, this is good for you, because it'll have one of each shim going across various sizes to do what you need to get done for inside of here. You'll also need possibly a piece of paper and a pencil to write down the shim sizes, so you don't forget and you don't have to keep remeasuring over and over again. Another thing that you need to keep in mind is that you're going to need to make sure that the motor itself in the bike has been sitting off for at least 12 to 24 hours. Closer to the 24 hours is better. Reason being is that if the motor is hot or gets warm, metal expands, at least in any temperature that it has, will cause the shims and the parts to expand inside, and you'll get an inaccurate measurement. So what you want to do is make sure it's cold, so everything is the room temperature or outside temperature thickness for all the metal parts inside of here. Nothing is expanded. So the first thing you're going to want to do is make sure that you take off the valve cover. You can use an impact, that's perfectly fine. Just make sure not to put it back on with the impact. You can take it off because all you're doing is taking a bolt off. So let's do that. There you go. We have the valve cover off. We'll set that aside. So when you look inside the motor, you'll notice that there's a little mark right here. You'll have to turn the crank over and you'll see, let's see if I can get it with this one. You'll see a little mark right here. And that little mark needs to line up with this mark right here. There's a little hash mark right here. I don't know if you can see that. So line that up and make sure you get like a front-facing view on here, and you turn it until it's right on that mark. This is the reason why you need to take the spark plug out, so that it's easy to turn this and it doesn't get stuck in a compression stroke. But there you go. It looks, so the mark goes straight across right here. From here to here looks level as I'm gonna get it. While you're in here, you can kind of wiggle the valve right here, and you should feel some shake in here. If you can feel it like there's a little bit of a gap in there, the top one should be a little tighter than the bottom one, but if you can feel it wiggle, then you know that it's somewhat close or it's too wide. If you try to wiggle it when it's in top dead center and it won't wiggle at all, then it's too tight. So that'll require adjustment. What you're going for is that you want to get 0.004 inches on the intake and 0.007 inches for the exhaust. In millimeters, that's 0.1 millimeters intake and 0.19 millimeters exhaust. To me, that's easier to remember, but if you think 4 and 7 is easier in inches, that's great. And the way this is different is this works with, different from a GY6, I mean, is that there's shims that go inside of here, and you take those shims out and you put different shims in to adjust that lash that goes on the inside here. Versus on a GY6, you basically have a screw that you change, and then you lock it in place with a locking screw to get that shim in here. This one uses a hardened piece of metal underneath the valve thing underneath the lifter. So the easiest way to move this out of the way is to just, for the top one, for the intake side, remember the intake is on the top. Easiest way to remember that is your carburetor's on the top and your exhaust pipe's on the bottom. So you basically push it to the right, and it should if you wiggle it around, it should lock into place. And here is why it's important to have the magnet stick. You basically go like this, and then the shim will come out. It sits in a little slot on there, so you can move that shim out of place, right? And then to put the shim back in, you basically put the shim in, hold it down with your finger, push the spring down a little bit, and then move the valve lifter back over, and it'll be back in place again. So again, move the lifter to the right, and kind of wiggle it a little bit till it locks in place. Magnet stick, pull it out. There you go. Change it to a different one if you need to. Put it back in. Hold it. Push the spring in a little bit, and then wiggle the valve lifter, and it will go back over to the right. Reason that the magnet is good, because if you drop this thing inside of here, it's going to get lodged in here somewhere, and you're just not going to have a great time doing this, and it's going to take you even longer to complete the project than you would. Trust me, I have dropped this before inside of here without a magnet stick and had to, and imagine the motor isn't connected to anything now, so I could lift the motor and turn it sideways to dump it out, but if it's still connected to your bike, then you're going to have to try to find a way to poke it out inside of there. Same thing with the bottom. Instead of pushing it to the right, you're going to push it to the left, lock it into position, go inside of here with the magnet stick, pull the shim out, right? And then course, when you're done, or when you find the one you want in there, you put it back in there, kind of hold it in place. Magnet sticks a little bit too magnety. Push the spring in, and it should go back across. There you go. Lifter's in place. So the goal of all of this is to get the right measurement on here at top dead center with the correct shim inside to get the right valve gap. So right now, let's mess with the top. So this is the 0.1 millimeter or 0.004 inches, right? I move it in there. It's gonna be a little bit tight. See, that seems good to me. Like, I would leave that alone. But let's just say that when I put it in here, it barely fits in here, right? Barely fits. It's super tight, right? I can barely even get the shim inside of there. Then I know that it's too thick, right? It's too tight. So what I do is I will move the valve, the lifter over, grab the shim, right? It's too tight, remember. So that means this little piece here is too big. And this is why I like the caliper. So I'll grab the caliper, I'll put the shim inside of here, and I'll measure it. So this is about 1.2, right? So what I'll do is I'll go into the kit, be like, okay, 1.2, it needs to be thinner. I look through the kit and I see something inside of here. Let's just say that I have a 1.15. So I'll grab the 1.15 because I want to go down 0.05, and I'll put that one inside of here. I'll find that new shim, right? I'll put it inside. I'll push the spring down to get the valve lash thing back on top of it, or on the top, whichever one I was looking at. Sorry, I was doing the wrong one. Once I put that new shim in, I'll go in and remeasure. Get used to this, because there's going to be a lot of remeasuring over and over again. All right, so I got the right shim inside of there now. The little guide works the way I want to. It should barely drag across on there. And then you do the bottom, same way. So what you should do after you think that you got the valve lash set correctly, right? You want to go ahead and rotate it. Rotate the motor over a few times. Misalign top dead center. Rotate, 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 rotate. And then put it back in top dead center. Measure again. Both the top and the bottom. If it seems different than it did before, then rotate it again. Measure it. If it's different again, then do an adjustment again. And keep doing that until after you rotate it a few times, it keeps coming with the same measurement over and over again, and it looks right. What you don't want to do is you don't want to set it right, think you got it, close it, turn it on, and it's not working right, and then have to take it apart again to try to work on it. But remember what I said before, you have to make sure that the engine's cold, so you can't do it again until tomorrow. So just keep rotating it until you get it on there. So that's the reason why I like the caliper, is this helps you with the guessing process and helps you eliminate that guessing process. This is not hard. It does take some specialized little tools to get it done, to make it work. It takes a lot of patience. It takes a lot of measuring. You make sure you got it right, and then close it back up. Now, you're gonna have to do this more often if you have a CDI on your bike and you're running above the regular RPM on here, above 8,600 RPM or 8,800 RPM, like you're really trying to max it out to 10,000. You're going to have to adjust this more often because you're just running the motor at a higher RPM and beating up these lifters and beating up these shims and causing them to change shape so that your valve lash gets a little bit off. So that's really it, all in a nutshell. After that, you just go ahead and put everything back together. Make sure your gasket on here is good. Since this is a demo, I don't really have a good gasket on here, but you put the gasket back, put the valve cover back on. Some people put this to torque spec. I do it to 2 Ooga Oogas. Just make sure it's not loose is all, so it doesn't leak any oil. And there you go. My very first attempt at how to explain how to do a valve lash adjustment on a Honda Ruckus 49cc Get motor. All right, there you go. So just make sure that when you do this that the motor's cold. Make sure you have all the proper tools. Don't go into this halfway and then finish it later on, because you are exposing the internal parts of your motor to your environment whenever you take that lid off. So please do it correctly. I intend to make a revision of this video if there's anything that I missed. Let me know if you have any questions below. Feel free to contact me and I'll make sure that I can answer any questions if I have anything about this that I might have missed or anything. But I hope you guys enjoyed. This has been a long time coming for this video, and I'll see everybody in the next video. Synchronize the footage, yeah. Synchronize the footage, yeah. Look at that, that's what you want. That's what you want with the tools in front, yeah.